Welcome to the Rock's Back Pages podcast. I'm Barney Hoskins, and I've had no sleep till Hammersmith, but I am here with my colleague Jasper Murison Bowie.
Hello, Barney.
Actually did sleep well. I just wanted to get that in. I don't know why. For this very special episode, which we're pre-recording on November the 20th, we welcome not one but two guests. One was born just down the road in Chiswick, I believe.
That's correct.
The other just flew in from her native Los Angeles. Welcome, Susan Compo and Derek Ridgers.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Sue is the acclaimed author of the novel Pretty Things and of terrific short story collections. Plus, she's written brilliant books about David Bowie and the cult actor Warren Oates, one of my favourite character and leading actors ever. Derek is the legendary photographer who captured several of the key tribes of London nightlife and also shot pretty much everyone from Tiger Woods and Clint Eastwood to Tony Blair and the Spice Girls. Our guests first met on assignment in Los Angeles, at least that's the received story, and they've been great friends ever since. Sue, take us back to that fateful day in LA when you believe you first met Derek.
Yes, well, it was the fantastic hub of Pasadena, California, in an English pub with the unpredictable name of Lucky Baldwin's. It was a gangster. Anyway, we were assigned by, I don't know if it was Matt Snow at the time, the editor of FourFourTwo, to do a piece on Hollywood United, the football team with Ian Asbury, Steve Jones, Jason Statham, whose phone number I still have for some reason. I never used to.
Useful for you, Sue.
We need someone's head kicked in. He'll do it.
I think it's the most unpredictable thing, really. But yeah. And anyway, so I was waiting in Lucky Baldwin's with a friend who's visiting from London, too. And he thought maybe that was you. And I thought, oh, whatever. And I think you were looking over. And then you said, when we connected, you said, because we'd been corresponding about what was going on in Los Angeles, like the tiki bar scene. I think you came over to do that. Was it Velvet Hammer, the burlesque show photos? Yeah. Anyway, so I do remember distinctly that you said to me, you don't look like someone who'd be hanging out in tiki bars. And I wasn't sure how to take it, but I got over it.
I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, what did you mean by that?
I don't know. I don't know what I ever meant by anything I ever said.
Maybe black hair, you know.
Quite often I would say something and then figure out what I meant afterwards.
Well, but it all went uphill from there, you know.
Derek,
or downhill was all.
I mean,
fun.
is it fair to say that was the beginning of a long transatlantic friendship? And can you tell us about that friendship?
Well, I suppose it was the beginning of a sort of friendship, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I used to go to Los Angeles quite a lot.
Right.
Yes.
Back in the late 80s and 90s, mostly for NME. You know, the thing is, whatever you were assigned to do, the photography part of it would sometimes be half an hour, and I might be there for a week, so I'd have to find other things to do.
Yes.
And you could always find something to do in Los Angeles or West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Pasadena, you know. So it was great just looking around, finding things to do.
I've been to some great places with Sue in LA. She's a great guide to the older Los Angeles, which I really appreciate.
Well, I did work for the Rough Guide to California way back when.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember they gave me the assignment of how to buy drugs in Los Angeles. It was a very old Rough Guide. And I thought, well...
Well, Sue, since you grew up in Southern California...
I was, born in New York, so I'm not LA native.
Oh, you were born in New York.
Yeah,
Okay. I had forgotten that. But
That's okay,
would you tell us about, you know, growing up in Orange County and how you came to write about music in the first place?
Yeah. Orange County, I got out of as soon as I could. And
that's the Orange County part.
Still kind of show. No, actually, because I did get a job working for the then Santa Ana Register, now Orange County Register. And because I'd been a music fan, just always. I mean, Crosby, Stills and Nash. I mean, the Monkees, anything from the time I remember starting to listen to music. I always followed it. And then I had a big Bowie phase, big punk phase. And at the time I was working at the Orange County, Santa Ana Register.
Yes.
And that's why I wrote a piece about the pistols for them, which is, again, an unlikely thing.
Well, let's quote from that, because that's the first piece. So this is what you wrote. This is the Sex Pistols shoot to the top from, as you say, the Santa Ana Register, 12th of January 1978. Now anticipation runs high as the Sex Pistols prepare to embark on their first US concert tour. Originally scheduled to begin December 30th in Pittsburgh, the group's plans hit yet another snag when last Thursday the State Department refused to grant them visas, charging that Paul Cook and Steve Jones both had records of theft convictions. By Friday, waivers had been obtained and the visas were granted. The tour, which commenced January 5th in Atlanta, reaches the West Coast Friday when the Sex Pistols play San Francisco. And now, obviously, that was the famous Winterland show when John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, uttered the immortal phrase, "Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?"
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Good night.
And just worth mentioning, of course, that Steve Jones ended up playing for Hollywood United all those years later.
That's right, that's right.
Exactly,
that's right.
So it all comes full circle. But you saw the Pistols on that tour.
Right, Tulsa and Dallas.
Two shows.
You saw
was it the Longhorn? And
yes.
And you saw them in Tulsa. And
yes.
Jasper, you were.
Yeah, I was trying to find. Apparently, you're in the Dead on Arrival documentary. I was trying to find that, but maybe you can help us pinpoint where you're in that. I read somewhere that you're in it.
I definitely. It's the same clip that's in Pistol, the Danny Boyle thing.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit shorter version.
Yeah.
Danny. But initially, DOA's theatrical release, I had two parts, and by the time it came out on DVD, I only had one. So someone must have thought VHS, let's get rid of her. She can just have one.
What are you're talking about the Tulsa show?
Yeah, I'm just saying. We went through a lot of effort to be here, and all this, that, and the other. And I seem so sincere, in
that's great.
A world.
So a lot of effort. Did you literally you went to Tulsa from California?
Went to Dallas.
Dallas first, was it? I can't remember which was first.
Yeah, Dallas first.
But did you fly? You flew to Dallas?
Yes, and met a friend, and we went to the Longhorn Ballroom, and then went on to Tulsa. It seems backwards to me but I think that's right.
That's memory for you.
Yeah,
everything seems backwards.
Yeah, because Tulsa's that side of Dallas.
Yeah.
So possibly. No, I don't think so. But anyway.
Anyway, you saw the Pistols in America.
I sure did. Yeah.
And were they any good, or Sid could barely play the bass. Let's be frank.
Very true.
Yeah.
So when
but it was amazing.
It was an event. Good. I'm not sure. So not terrible by any means, but I had because of the fanzine I'd done. We had met Malcolm McLaren.
That was Blank Generation.
Right. We had met Malcolm McLaren at the Whiskey when he was there promoting the Pistols. And we were seeing the Ramones, and he said to us, "Look at that band wearing leather jackets. My band couldn't even afford to wear leather jackets." And you think they're decked out in seditionaries. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But in any event, so we got to know him and had passes. And so I remember reusing my pass so I could go both days, like writing over it. Imagine doing that now.
Very crafty.
Yeah.
You'd been to London at that point.
Yes.
I think. And so, Derek, you would have been around the punk scene that Sue witnessed in early 77.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that moment when punk was sort of erupting in London?
Yeah, well, I suppose the first punk band I saw was the Vibrators at Kingston. This would have been late 76. And look, I thought they were quite a good band, but and I was there with a camera. But the thing that struck me that night was that the audience went wild, and there were pogoing everywhere. And I thought, actually, the audience are a little bit more photogenic than the band. I didn't quite have the gumption that night to photograph the audience, but I sort of worked up to it. And when the Roxy Club opened in December of 76, I was in the queue for that first night. And, I had a little bit of a Dutch courage that night. And then I went in there and photographed the punks mainly.
And was that that wasn't like the beginning of what you're famous for. Was that the first one when you sort of thought, I'm more interested in
I suppose so, yes. I mean, I went to the Roxy every week, sometimes a couple of times a week. And when it opened, the Vortex, and at the end of 77, I had some decent photographs, and I sort of started from there. I took the photographs to see to show a couple of magazines. I took them to show the woman that ran the ICA, Sarah Kent,
yes,
and she put on a show for me of that work.
All your photographs?
This was in 78. And really that was my starting point as a photographer. I was still working in the advertising business during the day, but 78 was really when I started to think of myself as a photographer.
I want to take you back to the Ealing School of Art, with your permission.
Of course.
And partly because your old loaded colleague, James Brown, who's going to be our next podcast by coincidence, not through any planning, but in an email yesterday, he said, ask Derek about Freddie Mercury nicking his girlfriend.
Well, this is true. I mean, this is... true. It was my first girlfriend, actually. It was, let me think, when was it? It would have been Easter, 68. We'd broken up for the Easter holidays. Everybody was in the castle, which in those days was a very small pub opposite Ealing Art School, which now I think it's Thames Valley University, or might even be the University of West London now. They keep changing the name. Anyway, everyone was there. It's absolutely packed. And I was in there. My girlfriend was sitting on my lap because there was nowhere else for her to sit. I mean, it was fine by me. And then I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, she's sitting on Freddie Mercury's lap where I was sitting. And I stood next to them for a few moments waiting for, her to get off and me to... get back to where I was. They ignored me and I stormed off, and that was it for me and her, Oh my God. But the thing was, I suppose I must have been in love, mustn't I? But I never took against Freddie for it, because Freddie Mercury, or Freddie Balsari as he was then, was such a nice guy. I mean, she got rid of him after a few months as well, so we're back on. But he was such a nice guy. You couldn't dislike him. Everybody liked him, in fact. Very, very popular guy at art school. I was either a year or possibly even 2 years behind him there. But he was a sweetheart.
Did you ever see his famous,
Smile? I saw Smile. Play.
Oh, Smile, when he was in Smile. No, I was going to talk, because he did these drawings, didn't he, of Jimi Hendrix?
Yes, I did. That was his degree show. I did see it. It was not very good, actually, to be honest.
Beautiful timing.
That's okay. He found his calling elsewhere.
Well, yes, the thing was, I think he didn't go into college that much, and... the work wasn't very good. It was basically pictures of Jimi Hendrix that he traced on a thing called an epidioscope, and then he printed them out in interesting colours, blue, red, that sort of thing. And then he had the lyrics of some of Hendrix's songs next to him. And that was his show. The funny thing was, he had been a fashion student prior to going to Ealing, and his work then was good, very good. It's just he wasn't. I think he was probably more interested in music than graphic design at that point.
Yes. I've seen some of those Hendrix drawings, and I'm remembering now that he'd sort of scrawled the lyrics beside them. Yeah. If we flip back to you here, Sue. So after the Santa Ana Register, and I don't know how many punk pieces you wrote in the book, where did your your writing career kind of pick up from that? What happened?
But I did a fair bit of music writing, for, anywhere I could, and
Yes.
then probably goth, the Cure era. So I mean,
Yes.
and having seen them very early at Conway Hall, I think in 1979. Where you were able to go out and hang out with the band afterwards, gave me an interest in following their career.
What were the Cure like in 1979?
Well, it would have just been right before.
Just the trio.
Yeah,
Yes,
just the trio.
exactly.
Yeah. I remember they had a lot of duty-free lager because they came in from, Crawley.
Oh, rock and roll, the glamour.
But, they were out by the airport, so I guess they stocked up.
So you're going to be the featured writer on the LBP homepage, and in addition to that Pistols piece I've referred to already, there's a wonderful interview that you did with Robert Smith in 1993 for Spin. And I hadn't read it for a long time, and it's a really great piece. I'm just going to quote from that, and then we'll sort of get back to the late 70s, early 80s. It was called Happily Ever After. Robert Smith looks remarkably well for a man who spent the morning in a graveyard. Eyes the colour of retouched travel brochure sky, healthy pallor and bearing, and brandishing a bottle of Evian. And it's because he'd been in shooting a video, been part of a video for Newman and Baddiel, hadn't he?
I mean, in fairness, spending the morning in a graveyard is better than spending the night in a graveyard.
Definitely, yeah. Anyway, it's funny, and you say in this piece, in a lot of ways, it's 1993, Smith isn't that different from the alarmingly self-possessed, determined 20-year-old I met after a Cure show in London in the early spring of 79. And he's saying at this point, I'm sort of worried about the fact that we've become quite popular in America. As if that's sort of, I don't know, betraying goth ideals or something. But, I mean, you're quite identified with goth. I mean, I've got in front of me the wonderful collection Malingering, which is, I mean, just inherently sort of gothic, sort of
gothic
epithet,
word,
really, isn't it? Yeah. And in the intro to it, and preface, you say, Malingering comes in as gothic rock or death rock, broodingly edges and slumps toward its inherent extinction. One character, Charlotte, spelt Sharlott, dismisses the affected gloom look as suiting only the very young, redundant for everyone else, the way style became fate, which I think is a great phrase, particularly with sort of goth. And I mean, in a way that ties in with, to bring it back to Derek, the way style becomes fate. You really made a name for yourself photographing, the members of certain stylistic tribes, if you like. And you mentioned the Vibrators gig. I mean, I certainly first became aware of you around the whole New Romantics moment, particularly in the Face and elsewhere. I think we did one or two things together at NME, but I might not have been there when you were photographing the act. But your photographs of musicians and scenesters and hairdressers and other key New Romantic personnel are have become really well known, and for most anyone listening to this will have seen your I hate the word iconic, but I think actually it's irrelevant. It does apply because I think everyone wanted to be iconic. That was in a sense. Is that the point really, that they wanted to become iconic even before that term meant anything?
Well, I think a lot of them felt that they were famous long before they were famous.
Exactly.
Yeah. People like Boy George, before he was called Boy George, I think, when he was just
George O'Dowd.
George O'Dowd and Marilyn, and I got friendly with some of those people in those days, and there was some quite interesting people. Unfortunately, a lot of the more interesting people didn't become famous, or they didn't become icons from the time, which is a shame in some respects, but there were certainly plenty that did go on to become famous and do interesting things.
Totally. I mean, more than you expected. And some of the bands became, were really pretty popular and sold records, didn't they? The feature on the homepage is to do with that scene. There's a really great piece that Ian Birch and John Savage co-wrote. It's for Time Out, actually, not for The Face. The title of the piece, funnily enough, is "You look fantastic," quote marks. "So do you," quote marks. And then the rejoinder, "But we're in time out. You know what that means?" And the other person goes, "We're doomed." And that's 30th of January 1981. And it's just a really interesting piece. So Birch starts off saying, bands like Spandau Ballet and Steve Strange's Visage, for them, rock is rejected as a social force and music is relegated to an antechamber of fashion. And then it just goes back through the kind of history of the guys that ended up in Spandau Ballet and Steve Strange. And what an important figure Steve Strange was. Can you remember when you first went to like Billy's or Blitz? And just tell us about what you saw changing.
Well, Bowie Night at Billy's in '78 was quite an eye-opener. The first time I went there, it was a little bit like going into a Hieronymus Bosch painting, lots of different looks, lots of people, very tight little club that was. And it was a great place to take photographs of people. People wanted to be seen. They wanted to be photographed. I mean, I never got, I always would ask people's permission. I never got a refusal at Bowie Night at Billy's, definitely. Or the Blitz, come to that.
No.
But what happened was, because I wasn't really, I had my ear to the ground, but I wasn't one of the trendy ones. I went one night and when everyone had gone, so that the cool people had gone and there was just the less cool people, the tourists, and a bunch of skinheads. So that was the night I first started taking photographs of skinheads as well. On their request, they came up to me and said, "Well, why aren't you photographing us?" I just thought they were art school revivalists. I didn't realise they were the real thing by any means.
No.
They were, though.
Sue, since you many years later wrote a book about Bowie, or specifically Bowie in Nick Rogue's film The Man Who Fell to Earth, did you have a sense of the kinds of people Derek was photographing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We wish we were there to be part of it. Although I was here between 78 and early 1980s, so I have no excuse. But I just didn't know about Billy's. I knew it was there, but maybe by then I was done with Bowie.
Well, you say in a piece, there's an interview with you from 1995 where you actually say, in Puncture magazine, where you say you went back to LA from London caring nothing about David Bowie and everything about punk.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And I suppose, but obviously that changed later. You started to care about Bowie a bit more. Probably realised Bowie was a bit greater than the Vibrators.
That's probably, definitely true. I was a big Bowie fan, like 73, 74, Diamond Dogs, and certainly the Cracked Doctor. I mean, that era, and up through Station to Station, definitely that tour, all that. But then I just didn't feel the same. But I returned to Bowie just because I thought I loved the film and wanted to write about the film. But today, even when people say Bowie scholar or whatnot, I mean, I'm really not. I'm good at that era, and I definitely know about that film, or about, pre-75 Bowie. 70 or 76, let's see, 74 through 77 would be it for me. I was like a fanatic for Bowie.
I mean, it's hard to get away from Bowie as such a huge influence on the New Romantics, and the fact that Steve Strange appeared in the Ashes to Ashes video was such a big sort of moment. It was almost like Steve was being anointed, wasn't it?
Ashes to ash and funk to funk it. We know Major Tom's a junkie, strung out in heaven's high, hitting an all-time low.
Do you remember that video well, Derek? Of course, yeah. No, I mean, it's something I remember well. I remember some of the other people in that video as well, that they were around at at the Blitz Club. I saw Bowie, first of all, in 69. He played at the art school, and it cost sixpence, one lunchtime. This is not 6p, 2.5p, sixpence.
2.5p.
And I had to walk probably about 50 yards from my desk to see him, so I was right at the front. And I didn't go because I wanted to see David Bowie. I just went because I used to go to all the lunchtime shows and also the student union shows, which would be in the evening. And there was some good people playing.
Was this pre-Space Oddity?
No, he played Space Oddity. It was just him, his acoustic guitar, his wife at the time. I think there was a baby as well. I mean, Angie Bowie was sitting on the stage as well with the baby.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you think he was any good?
I thought it was okay, but the thing is, back then, he was just, to me, just another singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar, like Nick Drake, you know. Really, that's what I thought at the time. You know, I met Nick Drake a couple of times as well.
I was going to mention that earlier, that I think somebody had mentioned that you might have shared a flat with Nick Drake.
No,
I wasn't
not
sharing
at
a
all.
flat. Okay, you over-egged that one.
The best I can say was I did have a roadie ticket the night he played the Clare College May Ball. This would be 69.
Cambridge.
And I just got that ticket from the guy that accompanied him on the flute that night.
Wow.
Ian Cameron.
Okay.
So Ian Cameron's in some of the
books.
Nick Drake books, and I also knew Paul Wheeler at that point as well.
Okay. So was Nick like better than David Bowie in that at that point?
No, I thought, you know, there were so many people around
Yes. Strumming.
doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, in
folky,
fact, to
basically.
be perfectly honest, because I knew him, I thought Paul Wheeler was better. But, you know, Paul Wheeler never had the luck that Nick Drake had, did he? You know, it might not seem to some people now that Nick Drake had a lot of luck, but in some respects he did.
Well, given his posthumous reputation and the sort of cult around him, I mean, not that he's benefiting from that now, obviously,
No.
but you're right. I mean, there were other sort of warbling troubadours in that era who maybe got overlooked. And something about Nick, I mean, I do think Nick was great. There was something really special about his songs and his guitar playing. Anyway, well, that's good. So you didn't share a flat with him, but you did.
No, I mean, I did meet him a
meet
couple
him?
of times.
Yeah.
But I've thought many times about whether I can remember anything that I said to him or he said to me. And I honestly can't, because I was shy and a little taciturn. And I think probably he was as well.
Yeah.
I remember being backstage in one of the backstage rooms at the Clare College gig, and Liverpool scene played, and also the John Mayall played when the Nick Taylor version. They were elsewhere, John Mayall. I think they were the headliners, and Nick was backstage with the Liverpool scene. Well, the Liverpool scene had Adrian Henry, and he was quite a chatty, very interesting bloke, in my opinion. And Andy Roberts was in the Liverpool scene as well. So I was chatting to them, and, you know, Nick Drake was just, you know, there.
Betty came by on her way, said she had a word to say.
One of the things that's interesting to me, not that I would try and draw a straight line from David Bowie, Elfin Folky, to the New Romantics, but at least for me, who wasn't there, looking back at it, the way that you sort of saying you left London not caring about David Bowie, but caring about punk. But actually, the step from punk to the Bowie night is not that difficult a step to make, because punk, for all its claims, was, at least, you know, in terms of the Sex Pistols, a lot of posing and a lot of caring, actually, even though it was purported that we don't care, we're not, you know, but that inherently as a statement is saying we care about not caring, which is sort of ironic. But do you think that the New Romantics pose, is it fair to say that that's in a way just a continuation of the punk
Well, a
thing?
lot of the New Romantics were punks.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, in 77, Steve Strange I saw him first at the Vortex, and yeah, a few of them were punks, and they just evolved. I think they just got fed up with wearing black all the time and bin liners and safety pins, and wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the piece I was quoting from earlier by Ian Birch and John Savage, Steve Dagger, I think it is, who is Spandau's manager, sort of basis. They were all into the Pistols, but we got bored with them because it became pretty clear they were just a rock and roll band. And John makes the point that he says that the New Romantics have taken note of the cut-ups that early punks made explicit. Those who participated in punk and then the Blitz culture specialise in different looks. The Pierrot, the Toy Soldier, the Ghoul, the Squire, all done perfectly for a month at a time.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant social observation.
And I think punk was a lot more creative, actually, and more varied than people think that it was. You know, there were lots more looks going on and lots more exploration than now. It's you think about it, it's like everyone was, you know, I don't know, safety pins in black, but actually there was a lot of creativity that I think probably just fed straight through into, you know, maybe with a different thought behind it, but the same kind of vibe of you know, because it's not like the Blitz kids were like rich or anything. Most of them, they were DIYing those outfits. It's just at a different level.
Absolutely, it was very DIY.
I think the Blitz and before that Bowie Night at Billy's had a lot to do with St Martin's Art School, the fact that it was so close.
Yeah.
Most of the people were there.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. This is actually a good moment to talk about the week's new audio interview, because we already mentioned Spandau Ballet, and they were the sort of leading lights, really, in this whole scene. We did have Gary Kemp on the podcast 2-3 years ago, and he was wonderful. But this is an interview with Tony Hadley, the singer of Spandau Ballet, who's about to start touring. He's doing a sort of Christmas like big band Tony Hadley show.
What he always really wanted to do.
We always think he was really cut out to be a sort of second-rate pub crooner, really. But bless him. He talks about being a dad. He's just become a dad, although he's not changing nappies. He's a pretty old school guy. And they are about to record their 4th album, working with Swain and Jolly. La-di-da-di-da, and about Gary. It's quite, given the legal debacles that have occurred in Spandau's life, it's quite interesting to hear Tony Hadley talking about he doesn't really have a problem with Gary Kemp sort of making more money from songwriting royalties, because
he actually says something like, oh, you know, I don't even know what to do with the money that I've got right now, so who cares? And of course later on he seems to have cared quite a bit, but what can you do?
Well, so that's what it is. It's actually our first Spandau audio interview, and I will be letting Gary know about this. He might want to go back to 1984 and hear what Tony had to say. But so we're going to play 2 clips, and this is Tony talking about Steve Strange.
Well, Steve Strange was he was one of the first young club entrepreneurs, I should say. And he's really, we got to know him down the clubs, you know, basically, because he was the guy who said, oh, no, you can't come in and things like that. And fortunately, we always got in. But no, he just become a really good friend of ours, someone who you know, we had a lot of faith in, I suppose, because he was a nice bloke, and we, you know, you could talk to him sensibly, and you know, he could appreciate what we were doing, and we could appreciate what he was doing, because he was doing something different. I mean, all the clubs before were run really by kind of 30-40-year-old people who were just out to make a profit. Yeah. And you know, he was doing something actually different. It was exciting, especially after the kind of demise of punk. He was doing something new. And I mean, I only saw him the other day, actually, down the King's Road. Right. We're both out shopping, and you know, hello, Steve, how are you? You know, and he's getting on really well. He's doing another album there. He's actually got himself together again with Visage, and so yeah, I think he'll do really well.
Worth pointing out, the interviewer is John Tobler, who's really more famous for interviewing sort of people like John Stewart for Zigzag and Arthur Lee, and suddenly he's talking to Spandau Ballet. I'm not sure for whom, but it's really outside of Tobler's normal comfort zone. Nonetheless, it's very well recorded. I think probably it might have been for radio, and Did you know? Do you have memories of Tony Hadley in particular from that scene?
No, I remember seeing their first gig, which was at Blitz. But I didn't really. It wasn't a band that ever appealed to me, I must admit. I took 2 frames that night of that band. They've both got published, though, of course, several times.
Yes.
Did the music? I mean, you only took 2 frames, presumably because it didn't move you. The music. How does music affect your photography in that regard?
Well, the thing is, when I'm taking photographs of a band, I sort of kind of forget about the music. I'm just very focused on what I'm doing. And I think if I get too swept up in what's going on, I might not focus on the photography. I mean, I think you've got to keep focus. That's quite an important thing, I think. Really.
But do you think you take better pictures when you like the music, or does it
not necessarily? No. I also, one thing I've learned early on, when I was started taking photographs for NME, sometimes you'd fly somewhere, you'd stay in a hotel the night before. When I came to shoot, I might have a terrible hangover, and I did find that having a terrible hangover didn't necessarily affect the photography, because it just made me even more focused, because I couldn't think of anything else other than taking photographs.
It's interesting to me because I sometimes, if I'm bored at a gig, I start taking more pictures because it gives me something to do. But the flip side of that is that if I'm really enjoying the gig, I don't necessarily want to lift the camera up and disconnect myself from that, because sometimes feels like if you have a camera in your hand, you are, I don't know, you're putting a barrier literally between yourself and what you're seeing. So it's
that's certainly true. That the reason I started taking photographs in the first place was I was working in an advertising agency. I had a camera account, and the MD of the agency told me to take the camera home with me and practice with it so I could write better ads. And I happened to be at Eric Clapton's Rainbow concert, I think it was in 73, with my girlfriend, now wife. We were right in the back row. And I had this camera with me, and I thought, well, I could go down the front and pretend to be a photographer. Why not? There was no security in those days, so that's what I did. I took some photographs right from the back row, and it's just, everything's like that. And then I went down the front, and I was, 6 feet away from Eric Clapton's feet.
No,
presumably Jill Furmanovsky would have been in the pit as well.
If she was, I didn't probably recognise her. There weren't very many people in the pit at the time. In fact, probably 3 or 4. No one told me to get out. I didn't have a camera bag. I just had one camera and probably a couple of films.
Another thing that I often think when it comes to gig photography is that it's very difficult to not just end up for the images to be a musician generic on stage. A photograph of a guitarist looks like a photograph of a guitarist, looks like a photograph of a guitarist to a certain extent. What do you do to make that not be the case, and to actually, what do you find interesting within a gig context to photograph? I mean, of course, we've talked already about how you like photographing the crowd. Is that partly a reaction to that?
Sometimes I'd photograph the crowd whilst I was waiting, or on the way out when I was being led out. Towards the end of my time photographing live bands, you might get 1 or 2 songs at the front, and very often there'd be a lot of smoke, and there wouldn't be the best lighting, and the answer to taking good photographs of live bands is pick a good band. That actually does something. I didn't have a camera in those days. Hendrix or the Ike and Tina Turner Review, that was a good one. Or those kind of bands that are actually doing something.
Doing something visual.
The Kersal Flyers, that was another one that was good. But I didn't have a camera in those days, unfortunately.
Probably wish you did.
Certainly. I used to be at the front in a lot of these gigs. I was at the front the first time I saw Jimi Hendrix. I was so close I could have worked his pedal for him. Seriously. The only reason I used to go at the front wasn't because I liked the band and I wanted to be at the front. It's I didn't want to be at the back where the fight was.
Right.
And there was always a fight.
It's funny that you mentioned smoke as well, because I think that's something people don't realise is a vital ingredient to a lot of, to use that word again, iconic photographs. I mean, not music, but all those photographs of Muhammad Ali. that are so colourful and vibrant, that's because the lights are reflecting off the haze of the smoke, and it creates that atmosphere on film. That
Smoke's no friend if you're using flash, though.
That's true. That's very true.
And it's no friend to people who are trying to sing on stage either. Let's listen to the second clip, which just ties in with what we've already been talking about. It's John Tobler asking about the sort of fashion kind of basis of this new romantic movement.
At the time, it was kind of, the whole scene at the time was on a much smaller scale, and it was a lot more controllable in a sense, just with the people involved in what was going on. So you can have very quick changes of fashion and ideas because there was only sort of several hundred people involved. And now it got to the point where it was, because of this band success, where it become, you know, everybody was involved, and it's very hard to direct a whole country into one particular scene. And we've never actually wanted to dictate fashion. It's just really because we were on television and people pick it up off of us.
Yeah.
We always like to try and keep ahead of what's going on, and, you know, or in touch rather with what's going on. And I just think that's important, because I think most kids are sort of very, very visual in their dress. It's kind of their own form of identification.
Yes.
Like you're a punk or you're a skinhead or you're a soul boy or whatever. And it's just kind of you become more of an individual. Clothes make you sort of more individual.
Check the time. It was almost time. A curious smell, intangible crime.
I wanted to just refer to an interview that Sean O'Hagan did with you, Derek, in 2014, and just see whether this sort of still feels right to you. But he says one of the underlying narratives in Ridgers' photographs is the move away from the confrontational culture and imagery of punk towards the flamboyant, decadent thrust of new romanticism, where the pose and the clothes were everything. He also says in the piece that your kind of observational photography attains a new importance, becoming a kind of visual anthropology of a bygone era. Do you look back over the, you know, thousands and thousands of images you've created, which I genuinely think they're just exceptional photographs? Is visual anthropology sort of over-egging it a bit, or do you feel that that's a valid description?
No, I think what Sean said was valid, because you know, I was recording these people's looks more than anything else. You know, I wasn't trying to take great photographs. I was just there recording what they were wearing. They might only have worn that outfit for one night, you know.
Yes.
And
probably only, yeah. Well, certainly only for one night.
Well, very often the Blitz kids, but also some people have told me since, you know, I've chatted to people much more now than I ever did at the time, and they've told me that I caught them at a certain moment in their life when they were changing from being kids and being told what to do by their parents to becoming a person themselves. You know, it was a chrysalis moment, you know, for a lot of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had such fun looking back over all kinds of different photographs you've taken, and there's for me, I mean, I'm not a specialist in photography in any way, but there's something about when you see a great photograph, you instantly feel you're connecting with a real kind of moment. There's real presence in of people when you're taking.
Think of it as like a three-dimensionality.
Yes,
you know, the person comes out of the photograph, and you think,
there's an attitude.
There's a real out. Being.
Yes,
there. You know, it's not just a sort of flat thing of like there was someone, and I think that speaks to exactly what you were saying, which is that is a person with the hopes and dreams and desires to be this whatever they're trying to be in that you know, with that outfit, with that space. What drove you to want to document that? Because I think it is a documentary approach.
Nothing really drove me to it to begin with. I just thought the people looked remarkable, the punks. As soon as I'd had the first show, I decided that I'd try and do it again. The second show I had was about skinheads. And I remember my skinhead show was written up in the Sunday Times and the Observer. And I was in the the lift with the managing director of the advertising agency that I was in, and he complimented me on something he'd seen, and he said, yeah, that was good. And then 2 or 3 weeks after that, I got the sack from that agency, and I thought, well, you know, I'm going to give photography a go for a little while. So what I did was I would take photographs in the day and work for advertising freelance in the evening, or vice versa. I'd do it in the day and shoot in the evening. And after a year, I was able to give up working freelance completely.
Yeah. Let's turn it back to you here, Sue, because actually in preparing for this podcast, I realised that one of the things that you have in common is that you've both either described yourselves or been described as observers sort of on the margins, and your stories are almost like kind of textual equivalents to some of Derek's photographs, and you're observing from the wings, and it's very often to do with sort of nocturnal life, nightlife, clubs. When did you start to think about writing fiction about these scenes that you'd experienced?
Probably when I started writing seriously. I mean, I can't remember in life not writing. I've always written since little kid days,
yes.
You know. And then I would say that probably when I started taking it seriously and thinking about a book I wanted to publish, and also that was the life I was living.
Yes.
So or observing, probably more so than living, and. Yeah, so that's why I thought. But interestingly, when you say that, when we spoke about Robert Smith, when I did that interview for Spin,
yes,
he was telling me how he'd read the story about him, you know, the fan obsessed with him, and he and his wife had read it to each other in bed, which I thought, okay. But anyway, then he said, it was hard. He said, I was so worried about what was going to happen to me. And it made me feel different about writing about a real person in fiction. And I never have done it since. I've never put like a real... No. I mean, instead I did biographies and gave them my fiction, hopefully not, fiction traits. But I felt like, gosh, I don't know about using a real person as a character now in fiction.
No, for sure.
It changed it. That moment made me
interesting, because I read that detail, that I was going to read that out, that it eventually prompted Robert Smith to fret over his fictional fate. I thought that was...
It's charming, yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And but it's interesting that pushed you to not want to do it anymore.
Well,
I'd have thought that would... Some people might be encouraged by that.
These are real people, and, you know, I can't impose my will on them in fiction. I mean, is this weird? It's weird.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Weird idea. Yeah.
In that interview that I mentioned earlier by Steve Connell from Puncture, summer 1995, I mean, he describes Malingering, which came out in 1993, which is a second collection of stories. He says it's seedy, star-crossed, occasionally star-fucked characters exist in a realm whose twin axes are Los Angeles and London, in an atmosphere that's gothic in both the musical sense, i.e. its characters are mired in the mid-80s gloom of Joy Division, Sisters of Mercy, Cocteau Twins, etc., etc. So, I mean, I'm just interested that was a kind of milieu, and obviously talked about The Cure. I mean, so what did you want to capture about people who were into that kind of music? And I guess if we're talking clubs, early clubs, the Batcave is the most famous of those. Yeah. What attracted you to that sort of darkness?
Gosh, I don't know. I think when I've read things about why goth came to be was that we were living under the idea of nuclear destruction. We had that heavy weight all around us, and then maybe there's a bit of that. It was just the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I set out to do any of that. It's just the only thing I could write about. So I was just driven to write that. It's the only thing I guess I thought I really knew I could do.
And you did it extremely well.
I
think these stories stand up extremely well after whatever it is now, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think you said that verse, chorus, verse, one of your publishers, are reissuing Malingering.
Yeah, and I mean all three of them.
All three of them
Yeah,
together.
they did it, and then they're going to do it again. So,
Great.
yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's rather heartening, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's a big thrill for me. It's unexpected. Yeah.
I find it interesting that goth endures as well as a subculture.
It never
It's
dies.
still-
Goth never dies.
God's not dead.
Yeah, right. But I guess there is something. I mean, we don't really necessarily want to dwell on the fact that we're in a sort of new nuclear misery as far as politics goes. But I suppose there's something attractive always about goth to certain people because it has that feel. Would you think that's?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You know?
I like the fact that Steve Connell. He says, in 10 years' time, how many readers will know who Jean Loves Jezebel were? And you go, yeah, somebody suggested they might need footnotes. So, I think the footnotes in these new editions.
The fewer people know about Jean Loves Jezebel, the better, I think, based on the music that we listened to a track this morning.
They may mean.
Are you very dear fan of
Well, I liked them at the time.
Soft
now
spot.
I don't. I would
we
not
listened
say
to
that.
one track, so it's totally unfair of me to judge them based
Did you
on that
ever
one.
photograph them?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You photographed goths.
Yeah. I used to go to the Batcave a lot. It was a nice club, very friendly.
Nice club. Nice
No, it was
friendly,
very friendly.
comfortable club.
That's the thing is that actually goths often are very friendly.
Quite cuddly.
Well,
Yeah.
When they're not hanging from the rafters.
it's like
bats.
heavy metal fans are actually the mosh pits at metal gigs are among the friendlier ones because people people will pick you up. Depends what it is, obviously, but I think there's a sort of general spirit of the outsider. I think and then when you're an insider of the outsiders, they'll look after you. I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I mean, I always found the punks to be very, very friendly, to be honest. You know, barring 5 or 10%, the skinheads were quite friendly as well once you got, to know them a little bit.
Once they'd stop
If you're
kicking
willing-
the shit out of
If
you.
you're
with
willing
their
to
Doc
shave your hair
Martens.
off,
Well, I did come very close to getting beaten up or worse a few times, but I was very lucky, let's put it that way. I wouldn't recommend anybody else to do it.
Well, it helps that you're quite a big guy, quite a tall
Well,
guy.
it's
Maybe I won't attack that
There's-
tall photographer.
well, there's quite a lot of big skinheads around as
true.
well.
That's true. Yes, I guess
you've
they
got a
could have
heavy
brought.
enough-
They could have brought you down.
heavy enough camera, it's a decent self-defense tool. I feel.
Oh, I don't know. I think probably the best thing is to not be there.
Yeah,
If
true.
you think that something's going to go off, leave, go home.
Yeah,
Do it another
That's
night.
good advice. That is good advice.
Sue, I'm a huge Charles Bukowski fan, as you may know, and I do love the fact that you read with Bukowski
Long Beach.
in Long Beach. That's you can sort of quit there, can't you? Almost, I'm done. And he said, I mean, this is almost like a famous quote now. He said to you afterwards or before, I don't know. I like you. You're a pretty girl with a dirty mind. This is just a line straight out of a Bukowski novel, isn't it? Really,
funny. And it was definitely after I read.
Anyway, high praise from I think a great writer, and you've had a lot of acclaim from all kinds of people: Hubert Selby Jr., Henry Rollins, Alex Cox, Pamela Des Barres, and I also just want to say, I mean, I think I've read everything you've written pretty much. Not every article you've ever written, but I mean, especially I mentioned the Warren Oates biography earlier, and I mean, I just absolutely loved that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's the only one, it's the only one I get royalties from, believe it or not.
you do get royalties.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really cheered to hear that. I mean, any listeners who have never seen Warren Oates in anything, I mean, he's just one of the great. I don't know. I mean, he's like a character out of Tom Waits to me, and I remember kind of even mentioning this in my Tom Waits book that there's things he says in what's the famous film that's already gone from my mind.
Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
No, I know he's in that, but there's the other one, Two Lane Blacktop.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Two Lane Blacktop, which is a great cult film. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have, yeah.
And he's kind of like a Tom Waits character in that film. I think Waits was an Oates fan. So, I mean, anyone who hasn't seen Two Lane Blacktop, which also has James Taylor and Dennis Wilson in it, it's one of the great like rock associated films, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But also the Peckinpah films that Oates was in are astonishing as
Indeed,
well.
yeah.
You know, so Warren Oates, what a life, a wild life, as
Yes,
your subtitle said.
Yeah.
So do go out and find those books. Back to you, Derek. Loaded. Now, so I mean, as I mentioned, James Brown, editor of Loaded, or one of the editors of Loaded and founders of Loaded magazine, is going to be our next podcast guest. And he said he has incredibly fond memories of working with you. You did a lot of trips together. Tell us about Loaded, because this is, you know, there's a documentary about Loaded. I mean, it's almost notorious now, Loaded, in terms of its, you know, objectification of women. It's not the worst culprit, for sure, and there was a lot of great writing in it. But tell us about what your first inklings of Loaded were. When did you, because you'd worked with James at NMA,
Yes,
and
I
he
had.
said, I want you to come to, I think that's my assumption.
James told me about Loaded beforehand,
Yeah.
and he put some of my photographs in the dummy issue naught, you know.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. It was a good, very good magazine to begin with, I think, before it started to go down the, you know, objectification of women route, you know, after probably, I don't know how many issues it was, 20 maybe. And
we've done 20 issues. Let's just get really sleazy now.
Yeah, but I enjoyed working with James as well, because he was one of these writers that would follow the story wherever it went.
Yes.
Whereas not all journalists from NME would, you know. I mean, they'd be in bed by 11:30, some of them, you know. But James, at least, he was somebody that would, if there was something interesting going on, he would go there. I mean, I think it was in Russia, where we were doing Band of Holy Joy, and I think it was in St. Petersburg. I may be wrong, and I think we went to Moscow, but they were going, and we didn't want to leave them. We didn't have a ticket to get on the train. We just got on the train, and it was an overnight train, and we didn't have a berth. It was completely full. So two of the Band of Holy Joy went and slept in the guards' place. The guards obviously asked them to leave, but they said no, and the guards just went into the restaurant car. You know, I say restaurant car; it wasn't much of a restaurant, and you know, it was just a strange time, really, Russia at that point. You know, but anyway, I don't know how we managed to get there. We got all the way without a ticket, you know, and it was just because we wanted to be with them, stick with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to ask James about that.
Yeah. No, that was a good...
Did you get any sleep at all?
Yes, I think we did. Yeah. You know, also there was a point in the night when most people were, you know, in the restaurant car, and the guards came and asked us to leave because it was too late, and people didn't. And that was it. You know, they just left us. You know, it was quite a laissez-faire time, I think, in Russia. I remember going on Aeroflot at one point, and everyone was smoking in the no-smoking department, and there was stuff. There was all there. There was a guitar just leaning up against the, you know, in the corridor. People stuff in the corridor. You know,
so had there been turbulence, all this stuff would have been just flying around.
Oh yeah, of course,
guitar would have just like flown.
It was just. You do what you want, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, the good old days, the good old Soviet days.
Yeah,
always pretty post-Soviet.
Well, they were quite friendly. The Russians, I found them to be very friendly, but they did have a way of communicating non-verbally, and I think they let you know what they thought without actually saying it. And I think that was because it was a surveillance society. You couldn't say what you wanted. You had to indicate it by a certain look.
Yes, exactly. How do you look back on Loaded now? In terms, have you seen? I haven't seen the Loaded documentary, I have to confess, which we'll have to do before James comes in next week. Are you in it?
No, I'm not in it. I did speak to the producers. I'm not in it. I'm rather pleased I'm not in it, really. Although I think it's well made. It's a good documentary. It tells a great story. It doesn't tell the whole story. That's the thing, you know, by any means. I think Alan Lewis had a huge amount to do with that magazine as much as anybody.
But he had a lot to do with a lot of very successful and interesting magazines, Alan Lewis.
He was a good guy, Alan Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I hope comes out of these podcasts is more kind of reclaim for Alan Lewis, because for years anyone all anyone ever talked about was Nick Logan.
Yeah.
No one ever talked about Alan Lewis.
Alan Lewis was the adult in the room in all these things, really. Mm-hmm. Certainly with Loaded.
Did your experience shooting people in like fetish clubs like Skin 2, did that kind of roll over into Loaded at all?
It did, yeah. I mean, I started shooting fetish clubs when the first modern one came along in 83, the beginning of 83. This would be Skin 2. It was in Stallions, which the club that's no longer there. The whole street's no longer there. Went the way of the tube trains.
Of course.
It was
Tottenham
just
Court
behind
Road,
Tottenham Court Road, anyway, yes, I most probably, if Loaded hadn't come along when it did, I think it was 93, I probably would have stopped going to those clubs, but it gave me another reason to carry on going to certain clubs that I wouldn't have gone to. Submission was a really great club. Torture Garden, there were very good dance clubs besides the fetish element, which was really, by the mid-90s, was more fashion really than proper fetish.
How many of these clubs did Derek take you to? So just be honest.
I don't think any. I know we went to the burlesque thing in Los Angeles together, but that probably was small potatoes.
Very tight. Yeah. Oh, anyway, look, fantastic. And we'll obviously ask James about working with you in the next episode. But I think we're gonna sort of conclude this conversation with football because we're all football fans of one kind or another, and the late Duncan Campbell, rest in peace Duncan, we had a lovely lunch with Duncan a few years ago, and describe Duncan. He was most famous for being an investigative reporter on The Guardian and really important work that he did, and was a good friend of yours.
And just very down to earth and fun and funny.
Lovely man.
Yeah, lovely.
Well, he described you as, he said, Sue almost counts as an honorary Englishwoman, as she is probably the only woman novelist in Los Angeles fully conversant with English soccer. And that probably is still the case, or it may still be
close
the case.
to it, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
how did that come about?
Here we go.
Used to have, in the early days of PBS, KCET would broadcast Monty Python late on a Sunday night. So I stay up and watch that, and afterwards would be a match televised. So I just got fascinated by hearing something about the sound, the pitch of the people on the pitch of the crowd. Actually, is fascinating.
Music.
It doesn't sound like American sports.
Right.
I don't. Maybe it's the singing or just kind of the whatever
the
note that
hubbub.
would be. Yeah. And I mean, I'd come and gone with a friend to see QPR back in the day when you could stand and
about only a few yards away from where we're sitting.
Really? Yeah, my geography is all off on West London.
A few yards, slight exaggeration.
Yeah, but so it just became a thing, and still is. I just got interested, and I came over, found a way to start writing about it. And
I've seen a few, more than a few, usually international matches on TV with you.
Yeah, that's
in pubs in Pasadena and so forth.
That's right. Did we not go to Studio City? Maybe we didn't for the Fox and Hounds, where all the celebrities come.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, probably not.
What I do remember was last time you were in our offices here.
Oh, I do remember now. You had
England's opening game in the last World Cup.
I want to say against Iran, maybe.
I think it was.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
not a terribly good game.
Not a
terribly good game.
But it's always fun to share, football fanaticism with you.
Sure.
And we're sitting here, Jasper and I being Chelsea fans, we're sitting here with a lifelong Tottenham Hotspur fan in Derek. Not only the fact that you became, tell us how it got more serious, even more serious for you.
I think it was after Alan Sugar had owned the club. He sold the club to Enoch. And I was on the steering committee of what became the trust. And then I was on the trust board for 10 years, and that was quite interesting. Used to have to go down and have meetings with the club, Daniel Levy.
Okay.
And
what's your opinion of Daniel Levy?
I liked him, actually.
Fair enough.
I don't think he necessarily always did the best for Spurs, but he did the best he could for, I think he was a fan. The stadium's fantastic. I just don't think he was quite as good as he thought he was, at picking managers and players.
I think the results bear that one out, I'm afraid.
Where did you, how and when did you become a Spurs fan?
I don't know exactly why. I mean, I was born in Chiswick.
I was going to say, you got no right, really.
I mean, I could have, as a toddler, I could have walked to 4 or 5 other grounds.
Exactly.
I mean, it might have been, I used to read the Hotspur when I was a little boy, and I think one reason was I thought Spurs were, somehow related to that Hotspur comic.
You still sort of believe that, don't you?
I sort of do, yeah. There was never any reason, but it's been like a drug for me, really, over the years. Many years, you don't want to be a fan. I'd rather go to Arsenal or Chelsea or anybody other than Spurs, but I'm a Spurs fan. I can't do it.
Can't change your allegiance.
You can't, can you? Really?
Can't.
I
would say to kids up the age of 10, you can change your allegiance, but then that's it.
Only once,
and that's
you
it.
can't
Then
go
you're
back
stuck.
either. I think.
You're stuck with your.
Do you have an allegiance, Sue?
She does.
Yeah, Leicester City.
Of course, we've talked about this. Yes, Leicester City. So the great underdog story of the 21st century in British football.
Right.
Yeah, you actually, unlike a lot of Spurs fans, you've actually sort of
stuck with it.
You've been rewarded. But how Leicester City? How, why?
Oh,
when?
my flatmate is from Leicester, and I just thought, okay. So I've gone to see several matches, at Filbert Street, and also when they got promoted in, I think 1990, when we were briefly promoted for a bit. 92. Well, in any event,
that's where it began.
Maybe it was yeah. Around that. Well, maybe it was more like 96, but yeah, and it's kind of.
Well, you get less
surprising
abuse than Chelsea fans get. I mean,
that's probably true.
We are.
But you just get ignored.
Hated.
I was wondering one thing about American. I mean, football fandom in America, and I mean that soccer fandom in America. That a lot of the games are played in the morning. I mean, it's growing and growing, right? But
it's really getting big.
But European games, it would be in the morning that you'd have to watch it. And when I've been in the States, for work, and it's been during. I mean, I remember being in New Orleans for the World Cup and getting up to watch Germany lose to South Korea absolutely miserably at like 8 a.m, and it was just like the worst thing. I mean, to start your day with that is just the worst thing.
But it could be 4:30 easily.
Right. Especially on the West Coast. But how do you think that affects appreciation for the sport? If I went to an English pub in San Diego to watch England play, and everyone was there like slamming the Guinnesses at like 9 a.m.
True, definitely.
Yeah. Whereas America doesn't normally have that big a drinking culture. So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, a lot of them probably weren't American. I mean, in the early days of watching football in the pubs, which I'd always have like a gig writing about the FA Cup being watched in Los Angeles, which now would not be interesting at all.
Yeah,
nobody would. Well, they might show a crowd.
Not newsworthy.
Not newsworthy, but back then it was.
Yeah.
But mostly everyone was English, and now that's not the case. Yeah. There's all kinds of people. Do
you feel good about that, or do you feel like there's something?
I don't know. It depends on, I think, the World Cup.
Yeah.
How what it looks like, and it already looks like to me way too many teams.
Well, spineless twerp Infantino.
Well, and if he's still sort of around, Trump will definitely make it all about Trump.
Stupid trophies on his desk every time. Every time he's in the White House,
it's
there
awful.
it is.
It's awful.
He'll probably rename the competition.
I reckon he thinks it's real
Trump
gold.
World Cup or something. So
it's going to be.
It's going to be really. I mean, look, from a football point of view, I hope it sort of passes off okay, But in some ways, I'd quite like it to. I'd hope that there's some form of protest from foreign players, particularly Hispanic.
You'd have hoped
players.
that with Qatar as well, but I mean,
visiting fans coming to our country from both Canada and Mexico. It's a fascinating dilemma.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I mean, it may not happen. I mean,
probably will just pass off quite smoothly, and then Trump will be on the podium with the winners.
I actually went to a Club World Cup game in Philadelphia in summer to see Chelsea play against ES Tunis, which was not, again, a sporting spectacle necessarily. But actually, to be fair to the Tunis fans, they were fantastic. But as a spectacle, it was very Americanized in terms of like the players walked out one by one with an American announcer sort of shouting their names, and it was like a sort of WWE wrestling match. It was kind of awful, actually, just deeply awful. The only sort of redeeming feature was that you could get like 2-pint mugs of beer and drink them in view of the pitch, which you're not allowed to do here. So that was something. But it was also like 40 degrees Celsius at like 10 p.m. I was sitting there like sweating, but I don't know how you play football in that kind of climate. So it's going to be an odd experience, I think, all round for the players, for the fans, to play in that kind of at this cusp of the commercialization of football in the US.
Well,
I think.
yeah, I see it here too. But with American football being promoted here and in Ireland too, it's odd.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have to talk about sport in the Rock Back Pages.
Sorry.
So I kind of want to finish by mentioning the late Jack Barron, who died last week, who was a very important writer for NME in the 80s and 90s, and died after a long struggle with vasculitis, and will be much missed by many. Did you work with Jack at all?
I worked with Jack several times, a very sweet guy, very softly spoken, gentle.
Very gentle.
Bloke.
Gentle.
Yeah.
Who can you remember any assignments
I can't,
in particular? Fair enough, because you've shot everybody. Why should you remember? But I mean, Jack is Jack wrote a lot of amazing pieces, and he's sort of famous for a rather combative interview with Nick Cave from 1988, where I think Nick actually assaulted him. Nick was in quite confrontational mode in that time, and it became quite a sort of infamous interview from that era. And you did a book of photographs with Nick, didn't you? Which you said you didn't particularly want to mention, but given I'm talking about Jack in the context.
It wasn't a very good book, I don't think, really.
Grace.
Some of the photographs are okay, but overall, not a good book.
Okay.
And
so don't go out and buy that book. Buy all of Derek's other books, but not Grace.
Yeah.
You said in an interview that you did around the time that book came out that you think that the best time to photograph musicians is when they're just starting to break through, as you did with Nick Cave in 1984. Can you, what makes you feel that way?
They're able to give you a bit more time for a start. And they haven't properly developed, really. Eventually, when they get to be really big, they don't want to be photographed anymore. They want the photographs to exist. they just don't want to go through the effort of helping you take decent ones. I mean, I photographed some musicians who wouldn't even get up out of their seat to be photographed. They wouldn't step outside the room. But Nick Cave, to give him his due, he was always very good in front of a camera. Was a bit of a poser. Really. But I photographed him 5 or 6 times, and each time it was like he'd never met me before. That's glorious.
That is great. As a corollary question to the best time to photograph an act, what do you think is the best place? You sort of just touched on it. Some people won't get out of their chair, but where did you like?
I would always go and look beforehand around, find some interesting backgrounds, or some place that would help it be just a little bit less than ordinary. I'd spend some time very often, sometimes the day before, nowadays you don't really have to do it. Like, for instance, I photographed X, the Los Angeles punk band, and I happened to know in Kensal Rise there was a wall with 3 X's on it. So I drove them over there and photographed them in front of these X's.
Very good.
Nowadays you could do it in Photoshop in 30 seconds, couldn't you?
But would it be the same thing?
Well, it wouldn't be the same,
because they wouldn't react to it.
And also,
they
wouldn't be driven over there. A PR person would say, "Oh no, you can't do that." No, I remember I photographed.
You can't drive people to Kensal Rise.
I photographed.
That's what my jobs were.
I photographed Robert Plant once, just before he was about to go on stage, and the last thing the PR person said to me is, "Whatever you do, don't take him out of the building." So he walks up and he said, "Where do you want to do it? Let's go outside."
yeah, that's Robert. He always wants to go out.
He's a very nice bloke, Robert Plant. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we're remembering Jack Barron with that, Nick Cave interview if you want to read it and see how notorious it was. That's one of the pieces. There's also a piece from 1989, one of the earliest pieces about the Stone Roses, who Jack was writing. I think he reviewed the first Stone Roses album for NME. Going back to the beginning of his writing career, there's an interview he did with Gregory Isaacs in 1982. He wrote quite a lot about reggae and stuff like that in that era. And then the latest piece is actually from 2010. I know it's 15 years ago, but that's the latest piece we have from Jack, which is a piece about Gong, what he calls the European Grateful Dead. And that's a piece for Record Collector. So please do revisit Jack's work, and he will be missed by many people who loved him at NME and elsewhere. And finally, Jasper, do you have any piece? As listeners will know, we add at least 50 pieces a week to the Rocks Back Pages library. It's Herculean labour. And then we do reference a few of these in the fortnightly podcast. So just going to tell us about
I'll mention two, but I'll only quote from one in the interest of time. The first I'll mention, which is The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash in the Game of Life, Michael A. Gonzalez for XXL in February 2000, which is a great long piece and well worth a read. Grandmaster Flash is really interesting in that, about both the sort of history and what he's sort of trying to get up to in 2000, and so that's worth going and having a look at. And then, just because it seemed to fit nicely, Kate Mossman in The Independent last year, December 2024. Boy George, when I called someone a white, I meant naff. And is a great bit where she writes that he's had a lot of fallings out in his time. He went to Madonna's show a few months back and she snubbed him backstage. I was in this room with all her friends and she didn't say hello. RuPaul and Madonna are quite similar. If they don't like you, everyone around them has to hate you too. It's like being at school with the cool kids. Oh. In the 80s, Madonna shook his hand and George allegedly said, "Ugh, I don't know where it's been." Now he says, "I have been a total bitch, there's no denying it." And to her credit, she never responds. Very Leo, Madonna's star sign. It's just very funny.
You're a Leo, you would know.
That's true, yeah. If someone snubs me, I never look at them again. I'm just kidding.
What star signs are you two?
Virgo. Double Virgo.
Double Virgo.
Libra.
Libra, okay.
Well, Barney, you. What's
I'm
that?
Taurus. Very earthy and grounded.
Well, on that astrological note.
Yes, precisely. So that brings us to the end of episode 217 of the Rocks Back Pages podcast. Many thanks to Susan Compo and Derek Ridgers for joining us today and being such great guests. Really, it's been such a treat bringing you two together, this long transatlantic friendship. Do read Sue's great pieces on Rocks Back Pages and do seek out the remarkable books that both our guests have published. They'll be in the show notes for this episode. If you enjoy the podcast, please follow it on whichever platforms you use. Please subscribe to Rocks Back Pages itself, or check to see if your local library or academic institution subscribes. And if they don't, please suggest they take a free trial of the world's largest archive of music journalism. We will be back in a fortnight with, as previously mentioned, Derek's former loaded colleague, James Brown. James, Mr. Please, Please, Please himself, Brown. So it's farewell and adieu from us and our guests, Sue and Derek, and all together now in imperfect harmony. Goodbye.
Give me time to realize my crime.
That concludes episode 217 of the Rocks Back Pages podcast. Many thanks to special guests Susan Compo and Derek Ridgers. Find Susan Compo's books in all good bookshops and Derek Ridgers online at derekridgers.com. The host was Barney Hoskins and it was co-hosted and produced by Jasper Murison Bowie. The Rocks Back Pages podcast is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find thousands of articles as well as hundreds of full-length audio interviews at rocksbackpages.com.